FM News Talk 97.1. On demand audio.
A shocking and horrible thing happened to me yesterday. I mean, this does have real-world consequences. I got up in the morning and got an email from a friend saying my sister almost died because of Obamacare. I was giving a speech yesterday, a lunch speech, so I went down and mentioned this during the speech, that this woman, she nearly died. She went into septic shock, got up to my hotel room after the speech, and my friend sent me an email saying my sister died from Obamacare.
The reaction to Ann Coulter's interview here on this. Her latest book, Never Trust a Liberal Over Three, especially a Republican. You can get that at Amazon. You can get it at AnnCoulter.com, is out now. And Ann joins us on the phone now. Ann, good afternoon to you. I'm so glad you're able to join us. Thanks so much.
So great to talk to you, Dana. You're my favorite.
Well, you're mine, so that you just made my day. So I was looking at some of the reaction to your interview with this.
Lovely,
and folks were
wasn't
saying,
it?
Well, it was kittens and sunshine all the way. I mean, people don't want to believe that this is actually happening repeatedly. They want to pretend that these cases don't exist, as you know, but this is becoming quite prevalent.
Yes, it is. And the weird thing, I didn't see a lot of the reaction, but I saw enough of it, is that they are arguing against their own argument for Obamacare, which is we need universal health insurance because people who don't have health insurance will not seek medical treatment, and bad things will happen. That is what is happening with Obamacare. People are being thrown off their insurance. Their alternatives are much more expensive insurance. We have lots more uninsured now under Obamacare than we did under the old system. And, so the argument, as some made, that she didn't die from Obamacare, she died from her own stupidity. Well, yeah, now we know she should have gone to the hospital, but when you don't have insurance, or to a doctor, right. When you don't have insurance and you don't know what it is, you just have a fever, you think it's going to pass, you're going to hesitate to go to the hospital and incur a $5,000 bill. The argument that, any emergency room would have been required to take her, and you know that it's required by law that any emergency room must take you.
Well, that's interesting they admit that now.
But the only people that it's free for are illegal immigrants, criminals, the poor, welfare recipients. If you have a job, you have to pay for that emergency room visit.
Right. That's fascinating that they are using that argument to you because they denied that emergency rooms have to treat people. They kept saying, no, they're turned away. I remember, who was it? The lady who said, she had to wear her dead sister's teeth. Representative Slaughter was saying she had to wear her dead sister's teeth. They just turn them away at the ER. They based a big portion of the push on Obamacare on that argument, and now they're arguing the opposite to you, which is fascinating to me.
Right. And what we want, conservatives, not necessarily our elected Republican representatives, what we want is health insurance to be sold in the private market, the same system that gave us universal cell phones, universal flat-screen TVs, universal 47 varieties of orange juice. How many times do we have to remind people that anything provided by the private sector will become cheaper, more prevalent, and better over time, and anything provided by the government will become more expensive and worse over time. If the government had leapt in 20 years ago and said, well, cell phones, they're so important in an emergency. If your child is lost or a car crash, everybody's got to have a cell phone. We would still be down to, 10% of people owning cell phones, and they'd still be the size of a shoebox. But by selling it on the private market, the price comes down. You have competition. What we want is competition, and all that would require Congress to do. I mean, the problem with health care to begin with, pre-Obamacare, was, of course, government intervention, mostly state, but some federal intervention, with politicians currying the favor of health care providers by saying, well, if you're going to sell insurance in our state, you must provide these following 67 services. Well, that's not competition. That's, sure, any company can enter the market, but you all have to sell the exact same product. Now it's been made worse. That is the case at the national level, which is why everyone is getting notices saying their health insurance has gone up by 50%, 100%, because we're all required to pay. No, you can't shop for an insurance plan that doesn't pay for Sandra Fluke's birth control.
Right. Oh, which, speaking of which, she couldn't afford birth control, but she can afford a $1,700 filing fee to run for Congress in California, which I find lovable, just absolutely lovable.
And
to
actually,
your
that's
point,
the least of the problems with the requirements Sebelius is adding. I mean, they're in Connecticut. I don't even know what came of this. It's so depressing. You just can't even follow up on these stories. They're considering, and presumably Sebelius is covering sex change operations. You have to cover full AIDS therapy. You have to cover full prenatal counseling, postnatal counseling, even if you are a gay man or a geriatric patient. You have to pay for pediatric dental care. You can't get a health insurance plan that works for you. I mean, look at the different plans you can get for insuring your car. You want a different type of insurance if you have a brand new Lexus versus an old clunker car you park in bad neighborhoods. You want very different insurance for those two things. Think of how much more infinitely complex each individual's health situation is. But you are not allowed to shop for the best health care. All Congress has to do is pass a one-page bill, well, A, repealing everything in Obamacare, and B, saying there shall be interstate commerce in health insurance, which is precisely the province of Congress to regulate interstate commerce. If that happens, all the states that have the fewest requirements, and they'll probably start dumping them faster to get all the insurance company business, they'll have all of their corporate locations in that state. I'm guessing Utah. And the same way all corporations, or 90% of corporations, are incorporated in Delaware because of the state corporate law is favorable. We'll all be getting insurance wherever we live, but our insurance company will be based in Utah because that's the place that allows insurance companies to sell different types of health insurance.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and I wanted to ask you really quickly about this idea that's been sort of bubbling up on the conservative blogosphere, this idea that Obamacare could be defeated through like a quasi-Irish democracy. People just don't participate. Millennials don't sign up. They don't participate, which is, it's kind of like nullifying it without nullifying it. The states really can't come in and unless they decide to pass something, an addendum, and come in and force people and make them do it. It's sort of like, it's sort of along the same lines of following the legalization of marijuana strategy, but with Obamacare. What have you given that any thought?
Is
that
a good plan? I mean, ultimately, if Republicans blow it, which they seem dead set on doing by fixating on bringing in 30 million more voters for the Democrats rather than winning the Senate, so it is possible. No matter how massively, vastly hated this horrible law is, that is going to hurt everyone in America. No, Republicans could still blow it. If that happens, I don't even want to think about what will happen if we don't repeal Obamacare. But I think probably the best alternative. But this, it's like the Soviet Union. The very wealthy will be okay, but the average and the middle class that are going to be hurt by this, and that is you're just going to have to set up. Maybe health insurers, certainly hospitals like Mayo Clinics on Indian reservations, or gambling casinos outside of U.S. law, because what you're describing will not work. Just because everyone hates it doesn't mean it's going to end. Not with the Republican Party as our standard bearers, at least much of the Washington Republican Party right now. Look at what the government takeover of public education has done. Yeah, okay, a lot of people go to homeschools, but we're still living with crap-ass education. Has public education in America gotten better in the last 100 years, the last 50 years? No, it's gotten worse and it's gotten more expensive. Aha! According to the iron law of economics, everything provided by the private sector gets cheaper and better over time. Everything provided by the government gets worse and more expensive over time. But this idea that you hear on Fox News a lot, that and this is when they were attacking Ted Cruz' frontal assault on Obamacare, God bless him, saying, don't get in the way, Obamacare is falling on its own. No, nothing falls on its own. You have to elect Republicans to repeal it.
Right. Well, and speaking of Republicans and kind of getting in their own way, last week you wrote a brilliant and blistering column which laid it out in very succinct terms, how the Republican Party is messing up on immigration. Paul Ryan discussing, what is it, the GOP principles that include probationary legal status. I mean, how many times has this been promised? This seems like a list of things that have been promised to us for longer than I've been alive, and yet they still have never delivered. It's going to be like amnesty back in the 80s again, I'm anticipating.
Yes, and it's not just amnesty, which was part of my column. I mean, Republicans are going overboard to destroy the country here with amnesty, but legal immigration, it's got to be curtailed. It has been before. There was a massive wave of immigration into the country from the late 19th century to the early 20th century, and in the early 20s, it was just cut down. Just that's it. The flow is shut off for a while, and it led to, booming prosperity. That's what needs to be done. Right now we're taking in, this was all Teddy Kennedy's plan to convert the country to a country that would be more likely to vote for big liberal democratic policies, and it has worked.
Why are they doing this?
Mitt Romney, if 2012 the country had been the same demographically as it was in 1980, Mitt Romney would have won a bigger landslide against Obama than Reagan did against Carter in 1980. They have changed the country. If this isn't stopped, it's lights out for the Republican Party and lights out for the country.
I hope that people are listening, and I hope that your column was printed out and affixed to every bulletin board and every congressional office in D.C. Ann Coulter, always a pleasure to speak with you. And folks, make sure you go out. If you don't have her book, I don't know why you don't. Never Trust a Liberal Over 3, especially a Republican. Ann, always a pleasure. Have a fabulous week.
Thanks. Great to talk to you, Dana.
You too. Take care. Thanks again.